Ahoy! And welcome to Manning Overboard, Happy Hour with Hotcakes and the Captain, a show about the good and liquid life,
where we talk about bars, bartending, and booze.
She's Hotcakes.
And he's the Captain.
Thanks for coming aboard. Now, let's go overboard. Start. Ahoy there, and welcome to Manning Overboard. This is the Captain, Rich, and with me as always is my wife, Heather. Heather
Hi.
Hotcakes, how are you?
I'm well, how are you?
Good, good. So what are we drinking today, Hotcakes?
Well, in honor of our guest today, I decided to make a cocktail that she has created. One that she's created and one that they have made for us in the past.
Oh, phenomenal.
So, for you,
yes,
I actually made a paper plane. This was the very first cocktail, absolutely, that they made for me when we first met at Subject in the Lower East Side when we first met.
Yeah.
And then for me, I made the Lolo Avo, which is their version of a Filipino pina colada that has cachaça, Amontillado sherry, and it's got a beautiful avocado lime. What would you call it? Avocado lime, like cream with coconut cream.
Yeah, like a cream. Yeah.
It was delicious. I will tell you what. She's like, she made it. She gave it to me. She's like, taste this. I'm like, oh my gosh, I want it on everything.
So
all the time.
But before we drink, will you please give a proper introduction to our guest today? Oh,
absolutely. I could do that. I should shut my drink down for this one. So, today's guest is Kitty Bernardo. They're the bar manager at Paradise Lost in New York City's East Village neighborhood. Modern tropical space designed to look like a tiki bar straight out of hell. It's amazing. Which is incredible. Prior to their current gig, they made a name for themselves as a bartender at New York's Bar Godo and Subject, and also by running the macabre-themed Spoopy Pop-Up, which is just a fun name. They also earned a spot on Punch's Best New Bartenders list in 2024, and was recently recognized by Star Chefs as a rising bartender, this past February, in fact. They're also a fierce advocate of the Appy bar community, and they're quite skilled at setting bar tops on fire. So, welcome, Kitty, to Manning Overboard.
Yay!
And what are you drinking, my dear?
Today, I'm drinking a little Saturn over here. This is going to be our variation on a Saturn that has a little bit of a house-made Thai falernum with it. So, just a hint of that Thai spice very much at the end, just to give asking for more sips at the very end. So, bright passion fruit, a blend of 3 different gins, some orgeat, as well as a little bit of lemon.
Love it, and the drink is beautiful. I mean, you make beautiful drinks, Kitty. So,
Thank you. Cheers.
Yeah, that's tasty. I hadn't tried the cocktail yet. That's okay. Try this.
Okay.
Try this.
You know what a paper plane tastes like, but try it anyway because
I didn't know what a paper.
You make a good paper plane. What can I say?
I don't know. Did you remember that you made me a paper plane the first time that we met?
I had no idea. I thought for some reason I made you something like a martini, but I'm glad that you remembered it. Now that I can remember that, it's going to be a callback for me next time I see you.
Yeah, it was. We were sitting at the booth, and I don't remember exactly how it came up, but I was like, I want something classic, and you were like, let me make you a paper plane. And I went, okay, let's go.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm so happy. Thank you so much for joining us. Like you are
of course.
You are on quite the trajectory right now. I am so proud of you. So before we get into like where you're headed, I want to know where you started bartending. Did you always have your sights on bartending? You are a Jersey girl. So tell us a little bit about how you got into bartending and how you landed in New York.
Yeah. Honestly, I might have said this before, but I've always been interested in bartending. I saw 2 movies that changed like the course of my life. I saw The Matrix, which like scared me away from any sort of desk job or anything having to do with computers.
Okay.
Yep.
And then I saw Coyote Ugly, and I was like, that is what I want to do. I want to have fun with my friends. I want to hang out. I want to be in like a cool space where I'm not tied to a desk job. I don't have to stare at a screen all day. I could just like, do something really cool and creative and fun. And granted, like I work at a kind of different, but not really a different kind of bar now. Super immersive, having all the fun in the world instead of like, squirting people with like water from the water gun. I'm just like setting things on fire, including myself, which is always really cool. Always been like in my mind's eye where I just want to like be around people where I feel a sense of community and kinship and just have a lot of fun and execute a really great product. And that's what I feel like at Paradise Lost.
That's great, and I've told you this before, Kitty, that Paradise Lost is an incredible bar because they're the only bar that I've ever been to in New York City. When I walk out of it, I'm pissed that I'm still in New York City because you do such a great job of immersion and escapism, and you do what that tiki slash tropical bar should do is like create such an immersive atmosphere that's cool, that's not kitschy, that's awesome. I mean, the fact that you're playing this great like Japanese punk rock in the middle of this whole experience, setting the bar top, setting yourself on fire, having these just bomb ass drinks that are just so delicious. Beautiful presentation. It is so much fun. And which leads me to my question of, as I mentioned, Paradise Lost is a hell themed tiki bar. Why does the hell theme work so well? I mean, I'm sure the Paradise
Yeah.
Lost is a reference to the Milton poem, right? Yeah.
Yeah, like for us at Paradise Lost, I think it was just like an amalgamation of like all the different owners, all of whom are like from the West Coast. Two are from California, one is from Washington. And they always grew up around like these super immersive experiences. They grew up like really loving tiki bars, all these like really cool places where you can truly get lost in and experience something new in. And they wanted to bring that to New York, but after working in the industry themselves, being bartenders and coming up in the industry, and also kind of coming into an awakening after going through like their own journeys, they're like, yeah, I love the tropical drinks. I love the flavor profiles. I love like all the ways you can find escapism through that, but I also want to do something, or we want to do something that's not as culturally appropriative or doesn't lean on like the same like kitschy, imagery of the past. How can we do this in a way that doesn't necessarily like offend people who, we want to make more space for and like have more respect for? Because we are using tropical ingredients, we are using like tons of rum. And if we're going to be using these things, how can we do so in a way that's like respectful and mindful of like the climate that we're in now and have always been in. And I think for them, the idea and the mantra of embrace the other really permeates throughout all of Paradise Lost. What is a place that has always been fantasized? What is like a journey that we have talked about in countless centuries throughout all these different books and art and media? It's the idea of the afterlife. It's the idea of what happens in the beyond. It's the idea of like what you're afraid of and like the bump and like in the night and like what are all those shadows that we have to come to reckoning with at some point in time or other. And I think it's really cool that we get to do that in a way that explores like demonology and the occult and like kind of feeds into that like, mystery and almost a little bit of fear. But what happens when you face your fears? You become stronger, you conquer them, you have a better and like a more enriched perspective of what life actually is, like anything that is unknown to us is initially scary, but we're all just demons here, just setting things on fire and having like good drinks. Like we're not trying to, corrupt the minds of children or whatever. We're just hanging out, playing a bunch of like punk rock and surf rock, and just slinging back daiquiris. That's all.
Yeah.
It's funny that you mentioned that, Kitty, because it just popped in my head. I could only imagine what the reaction of Paradise Lost would have been back in the 80s during the height of the Satanic Panic. You would have had people protesting outside going, oh, this bar, you're drinking, first of all, and now you're drinking and you're taking people straight to hell and Satan and all blah, 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 and all that crap, But,
cheers to doing the Lord's work.
Cheers to doing the Lord's work by making hell. Thank you.
Okay, but speaking of the climate and nature,
Yes.
you recently shared on your social media, on your stories on Instagram, about a post where you confronted somebody who had some casual racism come out of their mouth, and from a customer. And do you see this becoming a bigger issue in the next several years? And what can you do? What can we do in the industry to kind of combat that? Like, how have you come to a place where because you're out loud, you've said enough is enough, but you also have come to that place in the recent past, from the recent past. So, what's that journey been like?
Yeah, I think for me, and kind of like the irony of me working here at Paradise Sauce is back when I first moved to New York about 7 years ago, I told myself I'm never gonna work at a tiki bar. That's so cringe and like gross. Like I don't want to be a part of that, like feeding into like this fetishization of like, Southeast Asian bodies or Polynesian bodies of, people of color and using them as like, more fodder for like objectification. And when I was approached to like work here, I was just like, okay, they've talked to me about like the theme and how it's going to be different, how it's not just a gimmick, how we're actually going to be respectful, and being able to be a representative, and also not just a representative, but also like combat those situations and have these conversations with guests if it's going to be civil. That's something that I really love, is that I get to use my platform to kind of call that stuff out, call racism out, call like homophobia, transphobia out. Like these are all things that are really important to me, that we have these conversations. Like the community around you is not just the one that you build, but the one that you are welcomed into. And I think that despite the theming and despite like almost like intimidating the space can be, really it is about like embracing the other. Doesn't just mean like, embracing the unknown. It's also about embracing the person next to you and getting over your prejudices. So when I had to deal with that, and honestly, I do think that overt racism is going to be on the rise in the next couple of years. I was actually talking to my friends over at Bar Snack about it. How I have not gone a single week since the beginning of February, actually, where I have not been around someone or heard someone say something really racist, or have heard someone say like a slur in the bar or around us.
Awful.
And when that happens, we call it out, we drop the check, we tell them like, hey, thanks so much. Like, I appreciate your time. I just think it's time that we end the night. It's just not, we're not gonna serve any more drinks to these folks. At the end of the day, I think that what we can do, and what is really beautiful about hospitality, is that we can lean on each other and reevaluate how we can enrich our community better, how we can hold space for these conversations, how we can rely on each other to be like, hey, we're not accepting that kind of shit. We're not going to be dealing with racists at the bar. We're not going to be dealing with, like homophobia at the bar or misogyny at the bar, whether it's from our guests or from like our coworkers. We're checking people, we're nipping it in the bud. It's not going to be here. It's not acceptable. Like whether it's me leaving notes on Resi to be like, be wary for other bars and for other restaurants to be like, hey, this person was a problem. They said something that was really ignorant when they were in our space. Be mindful. We're never going to tell people like they can't go into, or this person should be banned. But like, if you're gonna be racist, if you're gonna be ignorant, if you're going to be proud of that bigotry, then I'm going to probably stand up to that. And we can within our own private spheres, because this is a private business, we can tell you like, hey, hate is not welcome here.
Yeah.
We reserve the right to refuse service to anyone. And if you're going to be putting our staff and the rest of our guests in jeopardy and threatening their safety and their good time, honestly, then it's just not the place for you. You are not part of the other that we're trying to embrace. You are part of the problem that is trying to continue to other us. And there's no space for that.
Oh, very
Amen.
good. No, that's well said, Kitty. That's wonderful. Now, obviously, your star has blown up in these past 2 years with the Punch and the Star Chefs. Do you are you, I know you're going to be harnessing your attention to advocate in what you just said, but are you going to also use that power to like harness to just kind of like grow the industry in certain ways, or just like kind of like influence the scene in general?
Yeah, I I remember coming to this reckoning during the pandemic actually, where, everyone's just like, "What am I doing? Like, I don't have a job. Like, what's my purpose? Like,
Hmm.
what makes me stand out in comparison to all these other like really talented, really awesome bartenders? And what is my niche and what is my purpose in life?" And what I found for me was that you know, we all have our own experiences and identities, and I think that's something that I hold really near and dear to my heart, is that I had to come to a reckoning several times over with my queerness, with my Filipino American identity, with what it means to be like a woman or like, how I feel about like my gender expression. And at the end of the day, I think that like when we have these conversations in the community, we can use that. We don't necessarily have to separate those parts of ourselves from our professional lives.
Sure.
One really beautiful thing that I remember learning in university was the phrase that the personal is political. Everything that we do, the way that we express ourselves, the way that we interact in the world is inherently political. Us being alive, interacting today, right now, the fact that we're able to, as two, like three different people from three very different backgrounds, like the fact that we're able to share a space now and have this conversation is inherently political. You are giving me a platform in order to share my story, and hopefully, I hope to use my platform in order to uplift these conversations and have more of them. To in using drinks as an art form, I created the Lolo Avo because I wanted to pay tribute to my Lolo, the man who raised me, my grandfather. Every drink that I make at Paradise Lost and that I have been making the last couple of years explores the identity of what it means to me to be a Filipino American, or what it meant to me to understand like my queerness or to understand womanhood to me. And if we can use drinks as that art form, as that media to have these conversations, the drinks themselves have to taste good. That's just like a given.
Right.
But
Yeah.
if people want to have that further conversation of, oh, what inspired this drink? Why is this drink so good? Why did you use, you know, garlic in a banana daiquiri, can be like, oh, this is actually the reason why. It's because I'm Filipino, and that's based off the flavors of Filipino banana ketchup. The reason why I use spam is not for just rage bait, but because like that is something that is so near and dear to my culture, but also has a larger context of American imperialism within the Philippines. Like these are all conversations that we can have if we want to engage in them. And that's what my drinks stand for. The drinks should stand up for themselves. They should just taste good. But if people really want to go behind the scenes and understand them, these are the conversations we have. This is how I go from just being your bartender to a real person, like with
Hmm.
fully fleshed out, lore, I guess.
Yeah.
And that's how I hope that people can see me, is not just a face, but like a person.
Oh,
Absolutely,
that's great.
100%. And I love that you wear your Filipina on your sleeve, like yeah, like
Oh,
literally,
totally.
like
Literally right
literally,
there. Yeah,
literally.
it's huge.
And I find it interesting that when people think tropical, oftentimes the Philippines gets overlooked, and it's not an island area that we think of,
Hmm.
but so often there's so much beautiful culture that comes from that area that is inherent in the tropical culture that we identify as tiki or tropical. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's great to see that you're using your platform and that to really educate the guests about like you said, Filipino imperialism, and all these other things. And do you see that as your career keeps blowing up? Do you see that as a bigger a bigger platform for that kind of education?
Yeah, I would hope so. In talking to younger bartenders, or even in the R&D process that we're going through right now at Yale, um, what we're always looking for is like, how do we push like the drinks industry forward? How do we innovate? How do we continue like having these like really cool cocktails? If so many classics and modern classics have already been made, what pushes the envelope forward? And I think that it has to go beyond the glass. It has to go beyond the drink. In having these conversations with like younger bartenders, I'm always trying to push them to be like, what was something that was like important to you when you were a kid? It doesn't necessarily have to be reckoning with like your identity and this huge thing. Like, I know that that's what happened for me and that's what drives me. But I know that that's not necessarily everyone's story.
Hmm.
But your story is important. You sharing your parts of yourself are important in order to like actually get to know each other and to fully realize these relationships. Like we have to meet each other in the middle. And so I hope that I can use my platform to not only give perspective, but also to still be open to newer perspectives and to see like, okay, now can we talk about like not just like our identities, but these intersections of identity and how those play into a drink.
All right. So changing things slightly and maybe not as heavy, but also something that is instinctively you. You have a style that is definitely Kitty Bernardo. There is no question about your style, which coming from somebody else who has a style and has an identity in her style. How does your style get integrated into your profession? How do you see that it gets into do you see that it gets integrated into your cocktails? Does it get integrated into how you create a bar menu?
Yeah, I think when I was doing this Spoopy pop-up, I feel like my style was definitely more at the forefront.
Sure.
Just because, like that was my pop-up. I got to like make the drinks that I wanted to make. But I think more so than anything else, like not just the style, but like my personality and like my like own personal interests really feed into the cocktails. Like while I think it's an interesting like two sides of the same coin where, there's this like heavy intentional impact that I want to make with like every single cocktail and have all these conversations. But how do you open up that conversation? Because, these things are like super heavy or really in depth. How do we get to the nuance and how do we get people interested in that from the get-go? And I think the way that you do that is kind of like a masquerade or like not necessarily like a facade, but like a bait and switch where it's like, hey, here's this like really fun, really silly, really ridiculous cocktail or this serve that's like so outlandish and so like funny, but let's talk about it. Like I think if anything, we have this like I think it's really funny because everyone who initially meets me has this first impression that I'm like really intimidating and like scary is what I've been told. But once we actually get to talking, they're like, oh, like you're just a normal person. And then if you get to working with me, there's the joke around the bar that I'm the biggest bro in New York City, which people would not think of if you just saw me.
Sure.
But I think that's the Jersey coming out. It just permeates everything about me. Is that's the underlying identity that like people don't realize is that I just want to have fun with my friends. I just want to bro out. I just want to be a menace and create chaos in the best way. So I think that's really the through
I'll be a menace.
I want to be a menace. I love that.
Speaking of being a menace and just kind of creating chaos, your bar, and you had mentioned Bar Stack down the road, and other bars in the East Village now that have opened up, like Romeo's and Super Bueno, they've kind of changed the face and the vibe of the East Village. It used to be very serious of PDT and Death and Co. and Amore and Margot. Love those bars, love the people behind them. But they were a certain way, and in the last few years, I mean, kicking off pre-pandemic with Mr. Paradise, like you talked about, there had been such a dramatic shift on the vibe of the East Village bar scene, and it's really cool and fun. How much does your work help drive that change?
Yeah, I think we were having these conversations when Paradise Lost first opened because we realized that we were kind of fighting on two fronts. Like, not necessarily fighting, but we found ourselves at maybe a slight disadvantage because you have all the people who are into tiki bars, but might not necessarily care about the drinks or the quality of them. They just want to be in the space and, like, see all like the greenery and the fire and everything. And then you have people who really want like serious, well thought out cocktails, but they're not used to an immersive space. They're not used to the fire. They're not used to like, listening to like the Misfits and Minor Threat, like blasting on the speakers while they're having like a really thoughtful, like, $25. These are all things that we were talking about is like how do we kind of branch through all these like these difficulties and kind of like win people back over. I think that we're seeing it in other spaces too, like Super Bueno and Romeo's, where it's just like, yeah, this is like a fun bar. It's like people often will like refer to them as like party bars or something, where there's like really high energy, but also behind that high energy, like you still have really great drinks. We want to make drinks, I think, more accessible is what everyone is striving for.
Yeah.
And same thing too. Like I love like Attaboy and Death and Co. and Amoria Margot. Like those are the places that I used to like cut my teeth at and visit all the time whenever I was visiting from New Jersey. But I remember being like, as a younger bartender, like really scared and intimidated. Like, like, oh man, like I don't want to like say anything dumb or like show my hand and like tell them that I'm a bartender because like then they might judge me or something. Which after actually going to those places and talking to those people, they're also just people and like really lovely.
Yep.
Yeah, and I think that like the names of these places can sometimes be like scary to like younger baby bartenders, but it's really just like bridging that gap. And I think that the new generation of bars is bridging that gap because it's just like, no, like you don't have to sit down, you can stand up. Here's a vodka and soda, but it's like the best vodka and soda you've ever had in your entire life. Or like here's a clarified milk punch that's based off of the flavors of like cheesecake, like cool, fun, innovative things that like still pay tribute and pay homage to like the bars that really paved the way, like PDT, like EO, like Death and Co. And we'd never want to step on their toes. We'd never want to like we're not competing. We're only like building off of and building with them and hopefully like making the scene a little bit different because it is different. It's 2025. Yeah. So that's what we're here for.
All ships rise.
Yep.
As we say all the time, all ships rise.
And it's great too because in talking to some of these legacy bars and some of the bartenders behind them, they absolutely agree. They actually see that synergy and they want to just see that whole something for everything option. And one of the interesting things I was talking to the guy who's the bar manager at Death & Co., Javel Taft, and he had said that he wants to go and visit places like Paradise Lost and Romeo's, so he knows exactly when the guest is ready to leave Death & Co. and go to the next place. He knows exactly where they should send them. And I think that's a really good example of how East Village, which is like, I feel is like the mecca of American craft cocktail culture right now, how they're all working together to create this holistic experience where you can have the nice fancy Pinkies out drink. You could have, you can have the peach vodka soda that Romeo's does. You can go to have a vodka soda at Super Bueno and hit the ball and have it swing over the bar top, and everything is great. At the end of the day, it is a great experience, and it's great to see all these legends really support what you are doing at Paradise Lost and all these other great newer places. Speaking of legends, I think you have a question about that.
You have had the opportunity to work under some bona fide legends. I think it's safe to say that you've had the opportunity to work under some pretty amazing people. What lessons did you learn from them, and what lessons are you going to take and teach the next generation? Because let's be honest, you are going to have baby bartenders under you who are going to look up at you in star-eyed and be like, teach me everything that you know. You're headed to the clouds. What are you going to teach the next generation, and what did you learn from those that came before you?
Yeah, I think that the through line that I've learned, like with the numerous mentors that I've had, with thankfully like the privilege that I've had to work with so many amazing people, um, really boils down to like one thing, and it's the idea that we never stop learning. Like no matter what I've learned, no matter what like people have told me, the end note they always leave me with is always the moment that you stop learning is the moment that you stop growing. Like you've already started to entropy, you've already started to like kind of cap out. The moment that you think that you've reached the peak and the pinnacle is when you're already done. Like you've killed your career that way because you've closed yourself off to the idea that there's still so much more to talk about, still so much more to learn. Like I loved like hanging out with Javel, like on our last trip together, because he's someone that I like respect and I look up to as like a peer, but also as someone who's like now the face and running like Death and Co., a place that I remember like looking up to and always wanting to work at when I was back in New Jersey. And to now be, I guess, in a weird way, like on equal footing, like we're both bar managers in the East Village at like really great bars, like we ourselves have not stopped learning. Like there's still something to learn. Like at all these bars that have just opened, or even from the bars that have been around for a long time. Like, obviously, like, these legacy bars have been around because something is working, and like, you can learn a lot from like listening to like old heads, not just like old bars, but like older generations of bartenders, you know. And it seems something that sounds very simplistic, but it's true. Like, there's there's this idea, I think, that comes about every now and then when younger bartenders are starting to cut their teeth in the industry, where it's just like, oh, like, why do I have to listen to those old dogs? Like, they don't know how to, do this or clarify that or use a spinzall. It's like, no, like, yes, these are cool techniques, but do you know how to run a room? Do you know how to talk to people? Do you know how
Right.
to read people? There's like another level of nuance that we can still be, like, learning from each other when it comes to like interacting with like an older generation of bartenders. And then on the flip side, there's a lot to learn from the newer generation of
Sure.
bartenders. Like, I learn so much every day from the staff that I get to work with the bartenders that have only been, pardon me, bartending for like 2 to 3 years, because they're still like bright-eyed and bushy-tailed. Like, they're thinking about like these flavor profiles and combinations in ways that I would have never known. Like, we mentioned a little bit earlier in our conversation, Elias Soto from Three Dots and a Dash. I know that he's only been bartending, I think, for like less than 5 years or so. And his palate is incredible. His mind for cocktails and how to compose them is amazing. Talking to Sergio Sarmiento, who I used to work with, who was my bar back at Leyenda, his vision for like how to compose a drink and his idea of like how to like tie things together, whether it's like an agave spirit or like gin based, like, just really cool different like perspectives. And I think that that's at the end of the day what we all need to internalize, is that we never stop learning because we never stop growing. And if we think that we're done learning, that's when it's over. But it doesn't have to be. Like, doesn't matter how old you are, how long you've been in the industry. When you transition into the industry, the world is your oyster because we're constantly growing. New things are being made every day, and you can learn all the time, every day.
Yeah. We were lucky enough just about a month and a half ago to be in downtown Hollywood at a dive bar with the king, Del DeGroff, holding court.
Oh yeah.
And the man is he's the reason why. I mean, there's a reason why he does what he does, and the reason why he literally can still hold court, and it's just incredible just to watch him work the room, and just so you can learn so much just watching him work the room. It's so much fun. But I agree, your mind can be blown by these young kids who just come in and they're just like, have you ever thought of this? Have you ever thought of doing it this way? And you're just like, where did you come up with this?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and it's also like one of my favorite things is seeing kids that are in their like mid-20s and they've already figured out that they want to be a bartender. This is their career. This is what they want to do, and I want to observe everything. We ran into a couple of kids from we went to Arizona Cocktail Weekend a few weeks ago, and we ran into a couple kids from Charlotte, North Carolina, and they were like 25, 26, and they were just there to just study, to observe, to learn, to network, and it was really cool to see that first of all from Charlotte, North Carolina, so not like, oh yeah, they're in New York, they're in San Francisco, but from Charlotte, and then just again these young kids, and they're like, I want to know, I want to learn, and these are the kids that are going to be looking up to you right now if they're not looking up to you already, Kitty, and just saying, I want to sit at your feet, tell me everything I need to know.
Yeah. Alrighty. So we've come to the end of the show. Happy hour is coming to a close.
Yes, obviously.
But before we say our goodbyes, I have a couple of final questions to you. I always like to. This is happy hour, and happy hour is coming to a close, which means that we're not done with our adventures. So we have what we like to call our last call questions, which are questions to get to know the city that you work at, the area that you work at better, so that if we were sitting at your bar, what would we want to know about your city? So, first question. I'm new to the city. I'm not new to New York, but if I was new to the city, after a cocktail at your bar, where should I go next for a good drink?
Yeah, I would say it all depends on your vibe, and that's what I always ask people is like, what's the next step? I think that Bar Snack, just because like they're two doors down, they're incredible, amazing drinks, amazing hospitality, great bars, obviously great bar snacks. You can go there either before Paradise Lost or after, and you're always gonna have a good time. If you're looking for more of like a dive type of spot, I personally love International Bar or Blue and Gold. The drinks are really strong, and there's a pool table at Blue and Gold. Or if you don't mind walking a little bit further up to Kingston Hall, the pool table's free. That's awesome. If you want to dance and have fun and like be in like a really high energetic room, then I would say like Mr. Paradise is definitely a place to go to. Or if you don't mind trekking all the way out to Brooklyn, if it's the weekend and if something's happening, go to House of Yes. Like have a fun time, dance your face off. It's gonna be great. Like you're gonna have a really good time.
Very cool.
Fantastic. Awesome. Okay, so where's the best burger in town? I'm gonna be drinking a lot. I'm
Ooh.
gonna need to put some food in my belly. Where's the best burger?
Yeah, if you're in Williamsburg in the daytime, if you're day drinking, I would say go to Peter Luger's and get the burger there.
Okay.
Sit at the counter and don't worry about a table. If you're like out late night and you need like a utility burger that still hits the spot and is like really great quality with some good sides, you have to go to 7th Street. Like that's what we eat all the time at Paradise Lost. Like that's how we got open, honestly. I think it's just like using that as our fuel.
We can confirm that because
we've done the
we ripped through the East Village. We're like, we need a 7th Street burger now. We need that emergency, and it's so conveniently located to all of our favorite spots. It's like it is the perfect location. Yeah, and yeah, Peter Luger's. Yeah,
we haven't done it, but it's on the list. It's on the list. Yeah. We haven't done the Peter Luger's, but it's definitely on the list. Okay, I have an afternoon to kill in the city. What am I doing?
Yes. You're going to literally any bakery in the East Village. I really love the Fornil or Libre is really cool. There's also the Cabra. Grab a pastry or two and get a coffee. Walk down St. Mark's or walk through Cooper, Cooper Square. Walk through St. Mark's, go to Tompkins, and just like sit down, have a bite. Pop into a couple of shops if you want to, because there's always like different little tchotchkes all over the place or like thrift stores. Um, Once you're done like going through that street, sit down in the park, people watch, play chess or journal or just like sunbathe if it's like nice out. I think a good mix of both like seeing what's in the city and all the little like cultural things you can touch on like in that on that street of St. Mark's and then finishing it off with like a really nice chill like park hang. Ray's candy store is like right there. Get a soft serve ice cream and like sit on a bench somewhere. That's like the perfect afternoon.
Mm. I'm doing that in June.
That sounds phenomenal.
Doing that in June. Fantastic.
Yeah.
All right. What's a cocktail on the menu that I should not miss?
Ooh, cocktail on the menu that you should not miss. I would say anything with a fire show. So any of the behemoths for like a couple, like I would say like the As a Tsunami Kiss is my personal favorite because it kind of like throws you for a loop. It's a coconut fat wash bourbon that has a little bit of like mango and calamansi and like a 5-spice demerara syrup. And the entire thing is like built for two people so you can share it and it's lit on fire and it comes with its own little fire show. So you can't miss that one. That one's like the one.
Fine.
Awesome.
All right. If you have one place in the city that I have to eat at, what am I eating and where am I going? I know it's New York, but what am I eating and where am I going?
This one is going to throw me for a loop. Oh man. Okay. If you only have one place to go in the city, I would say hit up literally any highly like hit up any halal cart that has a line in front of it, or hit up any like Jamaican or like Caribbean spot. Like if you're like in Brooklyn, like those are two things that I think are like really like the halal cart, maybe not so much looked over in New York, but definitely like the Caribbean spots in Brooklyn, like specifically like Crown Heights and like Bed-Stuy for me, which is where I live. Like those are things and flavors that you can't really get in a lot of places, especially if you're visiting from like outside the East Coast, outside of New York. So don't miss that. Like if you can, like make the trek, it's worth it.
We haven't done that yet, so definitely putting out that on that list. I know you all are bar people, but every now and again you might wake up for a brunch. Where am I going to have brunch?
Oh, I'm having brunch at Hags. Hags have a pay what you can brunch every Sunday. It is a queer and trans owned Michelin nodded restaurant. And so they have a prefix dinner that is both either omnivore or vegan at the dinner time. And so that's like fully set already. But brunch is really where they get to like kind of flex their creative muscles. and you can pay what you can. All the food is like suggested prices. The drinks you do have to pay for, but I think it's a really cool way of engaging in like a higher form of like cuisine and art, and also still have these really intentional conversations about queerness, about transness, and be in community with people who, you know, really do care about their craft and care about like what they put on the plate, but still make it playful. Like one of my favorite dishes that I had at Hags, like I want to say last summer, was Chef Telly's play on like a Lunchable. And I don't know how she did it, but she made it so good, and it was so fun to eat. And then at the end of it, when she was just like, "Oh yeah, this is like my play on like Lunchables and Scrapple," I was like, "You're so cool! Like, how does your brain work? That is so fun."
That's
But yeah, like it makes it like fine dining that is approachable, but also really great, really fun, and really interactive. And because the room is so small, you really do get to talk to like amazing people like Mayumi, like Tally, like Camille, like anyone that works there. You're gonna have like a great time and a great conversation with them.
Amazing.
That's wonderful.
And lastly, where am I going for a beer and a shot?
I'm going to International Bar, or I'm going to Blue and Gold.
Yeah.
Or if you're in Williamsburg, which is where I used to work when I first like started working in the city, I would go to Horses and Divorces because again, they have a pool table.
You like to play pool?
Like pool.
I do. I like to play pool. I'm not great at it, but I do like playing it.
Fantastic.
Nice. That's really cool.
Fantastic.
What do you think about darts?
I want to be better at darts, but my vision's not that great.
All right.
So I don't think that it's in it for me. But I came up in dive bars, and dive bars are where I eventually want to return to, like a salmon returning home.
Okay.
So I feel like one, like those are the places that you got to go to. You got like go to International Bar when Jen's working, because they will put you in your place in the best way possible. Like we were talking about with like learning, how can you learn from other bartenders?
Sure.
That's a bartender that you learn from. Like you learn how to navigate bars and how to act in bars by going to dive bars. And it's a humbling experience, and it's good for you. Like you should be humbled at a dive bar.
Absolutely.
That's fantastic.
I love it.
That's great. Well, you gonna say something?
I was just gonna say thank her. I was just gonna thank Kitty.
No, thank you so much for coming in and joining us here on Manning Overboard. It was such a pleasure, and it's such a delight to come to Paradise Lost and see your smiling face lighting something on fire. And you know, it's just so cool. And I will tell you as a side, I know why the first time I asked about that Japanese language punk song. So it came back on the last time I was in Paradise Lost. I Shazammed it, and the band name came up in Japanese letters. So I got to figure out how to transliterate that so I can find it on Spotify. So it's really kind of cool. But thank you so much for joining us, and I hope that you had a whole lot, as much fun as we did talking to you. And if people want to find you on the socials, where can they find you? Where should they look?
Yeah, I am on Instagram, and I am at Viddy_Kitty.
Viddy_Kitty,
Nice.
And we can be found at Manning Overboard. And if you have any questions for us, you can always email us at manningoverboard@gmail.com as well for questions and comments. Thank you all for tuning in. It has been a delight and a pleasure. We look forward to our next happy hour with you all. Thank you so much, Kitty.
Thank you so much, Kitty. Appreciate
Bye. It was so great to see you guys.
So
Good
great
to
to
see
see
you
you. And cheers.
Cheers. Yeah, I can't participate in this anymore.
Cheers.
I have to go to work, so cheers.
Cheers.
Cheers. Take care. Thank you.
Manning Overboard, Happy Hour with Hotcakes and the Captain is produced and distributed by EatsDrinksTV.
A service of the nonprofit Center for Culinary Culture, home of the cocktail collection,
The Center for Culinary Culture,
telling the story of food and drink, one taste at a time.